What's up, guys? Chris here to do a different kind of video. Was recently catching up on some subscriptions and was on Bruce Blitz channel. Been on here for a long time. If you don't know who he is, covers sports in general. He used to do a lot more boxing. Now he just does a lot of sports in general, a lot of pro wrestling. But he did this video. I'll put a link to his channel in the information part of the video, though. He did a video, your favorite arcade games of all time. You know, this is a subject which is one that I like because I grew up in the 80s. Was a kid in the 80s and used to love going to play arcade games, mostly at Round Table, more so than arcades, but they did have a lot of arcades back then. I don't know if they do now anymore. I mean, I know they have like Dave & Buster's, but I don't know if they have a lot of arcades. I haven't played an arcade game since like 96. So anything since then I haven't even seen or messed with. But he had a good list, you know, and he said leave comments of yours. I figured I'd just do a response video or whatever. The first one I can remember getting attached to was I used to go to Round Table over by my house, was Gauntlet. This was like 84, 85, 86. I was a kid. And I just remember there was like a lot of people standing around and playing this game, like 4 players at once, quarters stacked up against it, and everyone was bigger than me, it seemed like at the time. And it just seemed like people were continuously, endlessly playing. So finally got in there and got to play. Just a big maze game, you know, just fighting hundreds of enemies. I don't know, I guess the game ends eventually. I never saw anyone beat it. I never beat it. I don't know. I was younger, so I couldn't stay that late. Maybe people were there all night and beat it. But that game was fun. I mean, it was mindless, just button mashing for the most part. But I think the fact that there was like a bunch of people involved as well made it that much more fun as well. And just seemed crazy. Just like going at a bunch of dudes at once. But fun game. First one I can really remember being hooked on, though. Next up, I wouldn't say I was hooked on some of these other ones, but Super Sprint, that was a fun little car race game. Didn't have the best mechanics. Those cars were always sliding all over the place. But it was easier than pole position. That game sucked. You barely even touch something and your car blows up. I hated that game. Spy Hunter, another car game. I don't know how fun this game was. I mean, it was cool. It was pretty simplistic. But the music made it. You know, the dun, 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 dun. I don't know. The little soundtrack that went along with it. Dun, dun, dun. And then when the truck would come by, you had to get in to get your weapons. That game was cool. Another car game, Outrun, the Drop Top Ferrari, Racing Against Time. Aside from the fact that this was a fun game, it just seemed like a game perfectly made for the late 80s. The soundtrack, you had like 3 different little music stations. And it just went perfectly with the game. So that was fun. Altered Beast. This game, graphically, it seemed like it was ahead of its time. When it came out, you know, you were a dude, and then you turned into like a wolf, or what else did he turn into? A dragon and something else. I can't even recall what the other things he turned into was. It's been so long since I played that game, but that was a fun game as well. Off-road truck racing game. I believe it was Ivan Stewart's Off-Road. I always thought it was Mickey Thompson's, but I believe it was Ivan Stewart's. This game was kind of like Super Sprint, just racing around on a track, hitting nitros endlessly. Pretty much any way you could win once you got further in the game on the farther levels. Thing about this game, I always wanted to get the high score on it. I don't know why. And I finally was coming super close to getting it. I was playing a Round Table again. And there was bad weather that day. And, I mean, I was on the verge. I would have had the top score. And the damn power went out. Ended up like second or third. And it restarted everything. So that sucked. I mean, for me at that time, that sucked. But that was a pretty fun game. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the first arcade game. That game was fun. That's another one where it's like multiple people on screen, throwing down with robots and whatever else, dudes cracking whips. When you get killed, it's like shell shock. That was a fun game. And then, of course, you get into Street Fighter 2. It's another one's game. When you first get at the arcade, you just see people all over it. Quarters lined up. Wasn't so good at that one at first. Took a while. I mean, because you play these people and you're like, how do they know all these moves? There's not like a set list or a move list on the game, so how do you know how to do this when you first play for the first couple times? You have no idea what's going on. You have to kind of study what other people are doing. Eventually got good at that, though. Plus having a Super Nintendo helped. But that's a great game. Obviously, that series is still going strong. That led to Mortal Kombat, which I ended up liking more. You know, at least it's the arcade game, the original one. There was this little liquor store across the street from where I lived, and I would go there and play it nightly. Play people that would come in, you know. And I got to play so often that I could pretty much whoop most people that would come in there that would just like younger or didn't play it as often as I did. I feel like I had home court advantage. One night I was bored, so I beat the game with every character, which, let me tell you, with Sonya, not so easy to do. Or Kano, or Johnny Cage, but I did it. Um, but yeah, that's another franchise that's still going, but love that game, man. That game was so fun to play at the arcade. Um, yeah, that's pretty much it. One other one, Galaga. I know that's like pretty much older than all the games I mentioned. I didn't play it as much when I was younger, but when I was about 18 or 19, I lived with some relatives, and my uncle came home one night, and he had like the tabletop version that you come sometimes would see at the old pizza places, which was great. You know, I could play that thing all night. I'd come in from whatever I was doing, or if I was smoking weed back then or something, just sit down and play that game. It's having like a little arcade in your own home, so that was great stuff. But we had that game around for a little while, so that's another fun one. As far as worst games, the only one that comes off the top of my mind, Dragon's Lair. It looked like the old cartoon, but I don't know. I have no idea. I guess it was pre-programmed or something. You just barely like push the direction you're going to go, and next thing you know, you're dead. It looked cool, especially when it came out, because it looked just like the cartoon, but gameplay, it sucked. I only played it like twice. It was terrible. And I wouldn't say it sucked, but you ever play Super Mario Brothers at the arcade? I remember one time I'm like, all right, I'm going to get my quarters worth. I'm going to be here for a while because I could beat this game. And after each level, you got to enter a new quarter. Not if you die, not time runs out. You get to the next level, you have to enter another quarter. So goes without saying that I didn't play more than one level, because why the hell would I pay to play a game that I could just play at home? I just did it because I wanted to spend a lot of time on one game for my 25 cents because I was being a cheap ass. Anyways, that's pretty much it. Like I said, if you grew up in like the 80s, 90s, I imagine if you were a kid during those times, you probably played a lot of arcade games. So, if you have any favorites, would love to hear them. I'm sure there's a lot more that I played at Round Table back then too. I just don't remember the names. There were so many. I just don't really recall all of them all, but those are the ones that are across the top of my head. But yeah, want to hear some of your guys' favorites. Like I said, arcade games still popular nowadays. Graphics at home systems seem to be almost as good, so I imagine the business isn't as booming as it was at one time. But oh, and no, I wasn't a big fan of Donkey Kong because that game was hard as hell. But yeah, what are your thoughts on some arcade games you might have liked? If you agreed with any of mine, if you had any the same or any other ones that I should have checked out. Nor did I play NBA Jam at the arcade either. I played it on Super Nintendo, but just didn't really mess with the arcade. But yeah, that's it for now. Fight Fans should be dropping a boxing vid next couple of days. I'll probably shoot after this. But until then, I'm out. I think.